my name is Naveed. I'm an IT technician with over 20 years experience providing IT services to public sector and private sector companies. I'm just going to go through some basic overview of AWS services. As you probably know, there's so many different services that AWS offer, and it becomes very confusing, especially at the start, as to what services you should know to get you started. So I'm just going to go through the basic services and use a website as an example. So if you're considering of putting a website together and hosting it on AWS, what exactly would you need to get you up and running, or your website up and running? So I'm just going to go through these basic services with you now. So let's just start with discussing what is AWS. AWS is a cloud services platform that is provided by Amazon. There is other providers like Microsoft and Google. There's more, um, but what AWS does is they give you these services as a very competitive rate, and it's what we call high availability. So because Amazon is such a big company, they have their data centers located in all over the world, which means that you could if your host, wherever you're hosting your files, if for whatever reason stops working in one location, you have the option to have it replicated in many other different locations. So if one goes down, the other one picks up the files, and there's continuity in the services. So your content is always available to your customers. So when we talk about AWS services, the main services that you would come across are compute, storage, database, networking, security. So let's just take an example of you trying to host a website onto AWS. So you've got the website files. You have to consider that whether it's a fixed website or a dynamic website. For a dynamic website, you need to consider using either Lambda, EC2, AWS ECS container. So when you've got a dynamic website, you've got APIs that talk to your website files through programming languages. So with AWS Lambda, you've got the option of just putting your functions inside Lambda. For Lambda, you don't need to have your own host computers. Everything is provided to you by AWS, and you just put your files, your functions inside Lambda, and they start working. You don't have to worry about the operating system or um, servers or anything. It's a serverless system offered to you by AWS. EC2 is like your own computer in cloud. You have to install operating system. You need to consider how much memory you're going to use, how much storage you're going to use. Docker is similar to Lambda. It's a state where everything is ready for you, so you just put your scripts inside the Docker for it to start functioning. ECS is the Elastic container service that you use to run the Docker. So you use ECS to put your scripts in and for them to function properly. Um, API gateway is the communication between your API and wherever you've stored your Lambda or EC2 or in a Docker. So you have to use a gateway to communicate to them from the internet. A load balancer is for if you've got a lot of customers around the world, and it's putting burden on your, for example, EC2, then you have to consider putting two EC2s, and then the load is shared between the two EC2s by a load balancer. Route 53 is naming service. So if, for example, you've got a website domain name, then in AWS you put your website domain name and tell AWS that, okay, when somebody types in my domain name, where to where shall AWS point them to which location, whether it's a Lambda or a EC2 or ECS. If your website is just files and it doesn't need an extra server like a PHP, or if it's just a simple website with your company information, then you might want to consider just putting them in a S3 bucket. S3 bucket is a file hosting service that AWS gives you. So it's just like a big hard drive you just put your files in. So if you've got a website that just is files, it's not interactive, it's not dynamic, then you just put your files in the S3 bucket and configure the route 53 for your domain name to point to the S3 bucket wherever those website files are. In order for it to work fast and securely, you need something called CloudFront. What CloudFront does is gives you the security and gives you the extra speed for your website. So once you've got all your files in place, then obviously you want them to be accessed from the internet. And then for that to happen, you have to have a virtual private cloud. So what virtual private cloud is your IP addresses, your firewalls, your gateway, and all the networking components. And then you have to consider user security. So if you are the main user, then what rights are you going to give to yourself? If you've got a developer who needs access to AWS components, then you know how much right are you going to give to them. You have to consider that. And obviously things don't always go right, so you need to have some kind of a monitoring in place. So the main monitoring services are CloudWatch, which you can use to monitor your cloud components, such as EC2 or S3 bucket, and then CloudTrail, which is the user level monitoring as to who accessed which file at what time. This all information is given to you by CloudTrail. AWS also offers notification services. So if you've got some kind of a monitoring service going on, for example, that if the website is down, then how do you know the website is down? So you can set up an automated messaging service that would email you that it's something to consider as well. So you've got SNS, which is the messaging service, SQS. The difference here with SQS is that it queues up. So whatever message came in first will get delivered first. So it organizes those messages the way they came in. They get delivered in the same manner. Then you've got step functions, which is basically mostly for developers, and it just records the way every step that the developers took to get to where they are, and then if something goes wrong, you can just go back to that step. Next thing is data service. There's different types of data services: Athena, SageMaker, QuickSight, EMR, Kinesis, Redshift. Redshift is more for big data. Kinesis is for streaming services that need real-time videos um, and, and audio analysis. EMR is for data processing large volumes of data, SQL or other types of data. QuickSight is for creating easy to understand insights. Then you've got SageMaker, which is for specialist people like scientists and other professionals. Athena is used for analyzing data in your S3 bucket. You've got databases. RDS is the one that covers pretty much all types of databases like your SQL, PostgreSQL. Aurora is Amazon's own version of managing database. Then you've got DynamoDB. That's for a small scale database, like if you've got a mobile application that doesn't need big databases, you can use DynamoDB, which is the cheapest of all the services. Elastic Cache is just an option for giving more memory to your database for it to be read more quicker, and because it's creates cache, so it becomes faster for the users to read your database. DocumentDB is an easy way of storing data using JSON type files, and it's used mostly by the developers. So this is just a nutshell of the basic services that you need to know about AWS. So in this video, I've only touched the basics, just the surface of AWS. There is a lot of information available online, but I will go through and make some more videos and try and get in a bit more depth for each of these services, like when you're considering using an EC2, for example, what hard drives do you choose? Is it SSD or a normal hard drive? And even in SSD, there's provisional, there's general, there's so many different types to choose from. So how do you decide which component do you attach to your EC2? But like I said, we've only just touched the surface here, and I will make some more videos and will go through in a bit more detail for each of these services. Thank you so much for watching.